Hey, we're back. God Musings episode number 299. Hey, we get 300 next week. That's awesome.
That's right.
That's like a
I was
perfect game of
tempted.
bowling.
You had the background screens open. I was tempted to be like waving around the corner.
That's how we see it, but actually, I believe everybody else sees it just as the full video.
Oh, okay.
It's a weird thing, so we can kind of still see the background, I guess, or something like that. They got all these new stuff. They're always adding stuff to the StreamYard. I'm loving it. I'm loving everything to do with it. We've got a lot of cool features we can add when we show videos, things like that. So a lot of neat little tricks. So I'm loving that to do it. And there was a thing called OBS you can tie into this. You don't even need it anymore. It's kind of useless at this point.
Yeah, another thing too, we'll talk about it a little bit later, is we have our Kickstarter going with Creatures and Creators, which is going really well.
Yeah.
Today's the final day, so we'll post that link. But Kickstarter announced they are going to allow images on their rewards. So if you're a crowdfunder, that's a big deal. So, because when you go to check out, you have to remember like what's what. Now we can have images in the actual reward tier. So
yeah, and that's gonna be nice. It's gonna help out, I think, with people getting stuff as well as the people that are creating the Kickstarters for fulfillment.
Yeah,
to make sure they've got the right stuff.
I hope they allow the images on the add-ons, because that would be really good too.
And I saw that that was my understanding. That was part of what they would be doing, but I could be wrong. It's sometimes they're all a little vague on that stuff.
Yeah. So our next Kickstarter will be able to experiment with that. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, definitely on that. It's gonna be a lot of cool
the little things that make us so happy.
Oh, a lot of fun stuff on that. But hey, we got a lot to talk about, a lot of cool stuff
going
on. So let's start off with Loringer Family Chiropractic Center, PC, located in Belleville, Michigan, and Dexter, Michigan. They take great pride in providing the finest chiropractic care to each and every patient, offering on-site digital x-rays, massage therapy, orthotics by foot levelers, young living essential oils, aromatherapy, full line of vitamins, all in a family-oriented environment. Give them a call, 734-697-4244. Visit my line at LoringerFamilyChiropractic.com. Of course, you can visit them here at the Book of Faces, Facebook, Loringer Family Chiropractic Center, PC. You can like them, call them, message them, check out services and everything else. Definitely, we've recommended chiropractic care since day one, because they've been a sponsor, but because I've been a patient. And after the tumble I took the other week on the ice, I'm doing much better. And it really is because of chiropractic care, because I went and got adjusted, and your body helps heal faster when everything's in alignment, as well as, popping things back where it need to be at, things like that. So it's helped me out immensely. The only thing is that when I fell, I started a cough, and I think it's because it loosened up some phlegm or whatever, and it caused me to have a slight, just a lung-based respiratory issue. And I'm finally getting a little bit better, but it caused my voice to be a little raspy. This is the best I've sounded in like 5 days.
And like Brett, I also use chiropractic care, and it's great. I'm telling you, if you've never used it, well, number one, don't ask your doctor. Doctors have a natural bias against chiropractors. Yeah. Doctors the fact is they just want to prescribe you something to cover up the symptoms. Yep. Chiropractors treat the problem. And since going to them, I have been feeling so much better. I would have to crack my neck myself 5-6 times per day. I hadn't even felt like I needed to crack my neck. Literally, let's see, I've been going, I think 3 months now, and I think I've cracked my neck one time in the whole 3 months.
I just move like this and it naturally cracks, but
that's what I'm talking about. I don't even have to do that anymore.
I don't do the people, and you should never do this. The people that use their chin to try to do this, or
I don't even feel pressure anymore.
Like that. So, but the pressure it's alleviated quite a bit from that.
Yeah, so there's that, and then Jill just started chiropractic care.
Oh, good.
She has been these last couple months. I think her body took a toll helping her daughter. People who know that story. We went through a lot the last couple years. But she had to help lift her daughter and move her and do a lot. And you have to bend in weird ways when you're helping people, and carry their weight for them. And I think she jacked up her back over the years. So she started getting chronic headaches every day for like last couple months. Mm-hmm. So she finally decided to go to the chiropractor. I kept harping, hey, you got to do this. You got to do this. Trust me. It's going to work. It's going to work. She finally went in. They did the x-rays, and just, Loringer, you're in your consultation. They're going to do x-rays so they know what's wrong. Yep. When they did the x-rays on Jill, what they found is it's called the atlas bone. It's at the base of the skull. It was out of alignment. And so they've been working on moving that into place. And in the first time in a couple months, she hasn't had a headache for a couple days now.
Oh,
And
good.
it's been working because they are treating the problem. A traditional doctor would just give some kind of pill to try to numb the pain, but that bone would have still been out of alignment and nothing would get fixed. And there's a cascading effect. Those nerves that come out of there, the pressure on those nerves blocks signals from being sent. And those signals can be regulating your blood pressure, your heart rate, and other vital functions of your body. So we highly recommend chiropractic care. It does work. People will say, oh, but they want you to keep coming. They do, but it's because your body needs to be trained to be in the position it's in.
Yeah.
Your muscles get used to a certain position. So over the course of the treatments, they train your body to keep everything where it's supposed to be. And then over time, instead of going every week, you can start going every 2 weeks. Right now I'm on every 3 weeks, and then I'll be once a month is the way I go. Brett goes every week, but he has issues with his hip and other things.
Yeah, from my car accident 16 years ago, I've
Right.
got stuff that gets thrown out of alignment all the time, and as much as they try to adjust it, it's because I've got hardware in my body and things like that throws it off.
Right.
They don't tell me I have to go every week.
Correct.
Now they enjoy seeing me every week, not because I'm paying them money, but that's a whole different situation on that.
Right.
But it's the fact that I come in, and like I said, when I fell, first thing I did is I knew what time it was, of course, because I was and I have the listing on my phone of who's in the office, stuff like that, what times and where. Just they have 2 offices, and I immediately headed there and said, okay, this is what happened. And before Dr. Brian adjusted me that day, he said, we need to take some new X-rays, and we got to see what happened here because it's been a couple years anyway since you've done them. So I did X-rays. And he said, okay, nothing's broken. He was looking for hairline fractures is what he's looking for. They didn't want to adjust me and then cause even more damage because it can.
Exactly.
So we did that. So I was there a good hour and a half between getting the x-rays done and then getting the adjustment done. And I noticed a difference right away, even though I was still in a lot of pain. The muscular pain it's been there. I got the shoulder a little bit, not as bad as it was, a lot better. Elbows a lot better. But it took, I did 2 adjustments that week, and I've been going every week since. And it definitely helps. And then I can tell people it's about being healthy and take care of your body. And the thing I don't like is doctors, like you said, they either want to put a pill or they're really big into physical therapy. The problem with that is like, what hurts? Your elbow. Okay, so we'll have you doing this all the time. The problem with your elbow is that it's hurting isn't because of this. It's because of something else back here, up here, down here.
Right.
There's something else that's caused it to pull a different way.
Correct.
And that's the thing they don't work on at physical therapy. So
exactly.
It is a proven science for those that believe science is real, which I think we all believe science is real in certain aspects. It's just not the end all be all, but it is a real science. It is really proven. They are, and they have to fight a lot of times different states to be allowed to do certain things because certain states don't understand. And Michigan's been one of them. They're finally starting to let them do some different things.
Yeah.
So they're going through a lot of training that I can't talk about, but once they have stuff available, maybe we'll see if we can get Dr. Corinne to chime in sometime.
Yeah. So we obviously believe in chiropractic care. We use it ourselves, and I really don't think you'll regret it. If you have an HSA account, you can use that.
Yep.
You're allowed to use that. So that's like tax-free dollars that you're using for your care if you have an HSA. So,
yep.
All right.
So, hey,
other sponsor.
Yep. You got 2 minutes since we went over.
Yep. We got Team Titans of Real Estate. Why? Because you matter. That's right. Even though we utilize the latest in tools and technology to maximize your home buying and selling experience, we never forget at the core, it's a people business. Yeah. It's so easy today. Everyone's getting disconnected and just relying on algorithms. And the problem with algorithms is they don't take you into account. They don't take it into account the specifics of your home, the wear and tear, the updates, all those things. It's just looking at averages. So you want realtors who care about you and want to maximize the deal for you. And we just had a client. It was a return client. We just did the closing earlier this week on Monday. Everything went great. And, I keep saying it's because of those personal relationships. We have a really high return rate of past clients calling us to take care of their needs because they love the work we do. But unfortunately, a lot of agents nowadays, when you ask someone who their agent was, nobody remembers, because those agents are like one and dones. They show up minimal amount of times, do the minimal amount of work, don't do any follow up afterwards, and people forget what their names were. We stay in touch with our people, and they remember us because we do that, and because we've built relationship. When you have relationship, people remember you. So that's why we have a high return rate. So give us a call, 586-232-5144. I posted the link to our Facebook page, which you see on the screen here. So just click that link and go over there, follow that. You'll see updates on what's going on in the area.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, do anything this week?
What did I do? Well, we did a lot of work. I went and saw, you saw Shazam.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
I went and saw the movie Jesus Revolution. Kelsey Grammer's in that. We'll talk about that a bit. We'll talk some Mando from last week. But outside of that, I've just been sticking to my workout routine, doing good there. A good friend of mine had the day off yesterday, so we got to work out together. Usually I work out solo, so you don't want to go crazy on your weights when you're by yourself, because you don't want to end up in somebody's Facebook video where you're stuck under a bunch of weight looking like a fool. So you kind of play it safe when you're by yourself. But with him there, I was able to go much heavier. So today I'm like pretty stiff everywhere because my whole body's like, oh, what did you do?
Yeah.
So that was fun. And then another friend of mine, we have Bardstone Publishing, and he has a really good comic book idea. So we're going to meet about having me write the story for him, and then maybe have Bardstone publish it. So I'm going to have some meetings on that. But and then just worked a lot on Crimson Shadows, the next installment of what will be released. So
fantastic.
That's on my side. How about you?
I did a little resting last week, so as I was continuing to recover. But then I did work a lot. But I had a chance to see my favorite band, the Dolly Rots. They were here in Detroit.
Yes. That's right.
They were at the Sanctuary over in Hamtramck. I'd never been there. Small venue. They had the Von Tramps were with them, and then Haley and let me make sure I get the CD here. It was Haley and the Crushers. They are a California originally based band that moved to Detroit in the last year. Which is always the weirdest thing. Usually it's the other way around. Like we're from Detroit, we moved to LA, things like that. So, but I got a chance to see them. That's Kelly on the right and Lewis on the left. They're married, have two kids, River and Daisy, who are also there. In fact, they did a little bit in their concert where instead of doing an encore, they kind of took a break during one of the songs. And Kelly's like, I don't like doing an encore, so we're gonna take a second here, and now you get the River show. And he did like some goofy kid jokes and things like that. And Daisy was up on the thing because they're like 9 and 6. Daisy was up on the drums doing like that bump stuff, and then they came back out and finished up their set, and it was really good. She's holding a pick, which I do have one. I didn't catch one during the concert, but I've met Kelly enough times that she knows who I am. So when I got to say hi to her after the concert, first thing she asked was, "Did I get a pick?" She wanted to make sure I got one. So I got one. I'll put it up here, my thing here. So there I am. Solo layout. So there's signed by Kelly. It's kind of hard to see because it's not
very cool.
So it's awesome. I love good music. I enjoy going to see good bands, stuff like that. But I've been a fan of the Dolly Rots for about 15 years. Saw them with
Bowling with Soup.
Bowling for Soup. Yes.
Oh yeah. Well, I said with.
Well, I always
that'd be messy to bowl with soup.
Yeah. I joke with with Kelly. I said, yeah. I said you can blame Jarrett, who's the lead singer of Bowling for Soup, and our best friend. And I said they were like my gateway drug to the Dolly Rots.
There you go.
And then the other two bands that played were really good. Haley and the Crushers really enjoyed their set, and then the Von Tramps are great. So I talked to them afterwards. Got to know them just a little bit, and hope to see them again. Just a fun show. Not a lot of crowd. There's maybe about 100 of us there, and I wish there would be more, but I know they do other venues. When they go overseas, they will sell out like a 5,000 space theater.
Very cool.
So they do have good fans. But they're just a small independent rock band. A lot of people have heard their music at different times and don't realize it because they've done some different stuff in movies, and they were even on Price is Right playing like 10 years ago. So when they lived out in LA, so that was fun. So I had a great time doing that. It was a long day Sunday because I got up and worked. and they came home, had dinner, and then left, went to the concert. And I didn't get home till like 12:30, so I was wiped out on Monday working all day.
Oh, I'm sure.
So I've been kind of recovering from that because unfortunately I'm not as young as I used to be, though I don't think it, but my body says you are.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Oh, very
but we
good.
were talking about the Kickstarters. Let's share that real quick.
Yeah, I posted the link here.
Yep. And we're at 1533, so we are fully funded. We have just about 9 hours to go. We have 36 backers. We need 14 backers, and
To
then
unlock.
to unlock a stretch goal. And it was what I think $220. So it's like $17.50 if I remember right. Let me scroll down and see if we can find those stretch goals. Try to get a couple stretch goals in here. Both Scott and I have artwork throughout this book, along with Kevin. So this is, I get people ask me, when are you going to do stuff? I've been doing stuff. I all the Bardstone stuff. I've had a hand in almost all of it. So
Exactly.
there we go. $17.50. You get the Frankenstein print, and then for 50 backers, all books will include a signed book plate. I think these are doable goals between now and 7:30
Oh,
tonight.
for sure. Yeah, usually we get a bump on the last day, so we have 9 hours to go. You said 7:30.
Yep, 7:30 tonight. So we got about 9 hours. Now, Kevin texted me a little bit ago, so he will not be online tonight. So he wasn't going to do a stream, but I may still pop on.
All right, I'll see if I'm available. I'm not sure if I'm available tonight, but we'll try.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I am either yet, just yet.
At the very least, I'll share the link, if nothing else.
Yeah, I'll be sharing this, but if I can pop on, I'll pop on towards the end. We can watch it. Those that want to join us, and hopefully get a couple more things. So, but it's a fun book, a lot of great artwork, and it's a great way to learn about the different creators created all these creatures that we like, especially some that are tied into the Crimson Shadows and Poe universe books that we're doing. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
cool. Go check it out. It's a
Definitely.
worthy book to own. I actually was going through some stuff cleaning too, and I came across the old Creatures and Creators book.
Yeah, I got one around here somewhere. So
yeah.
But yeah,
all the memories.
Yeah, so it's some good stuff in that. So what do you want to talk about first? Talk about that movie you saw.
Oh, okay. Let me pull that up here. So the movie, Jill and I went last night to see Jesus Revolution. It's doing really well. Here's the Rotten Tomato screen here. It's a 99% audience score, 62% on the tomato meter, which is the critic score. It's a really well done movie. It focuses on the late 60s. There was a movement that Time Magazine labeled the Jesus Revolution. It's kind of back in that time frame. There was the whole hippie countercultural revolution going on, make love not war and all this, and they were turning a lot of them were doing drugs and this type of thing. They were a very anti-establishment lifestyle, and this movie focuses on a movement where it's based on a real life story. Lonnie Frisbee is his name, no relation to the inventor of the Frisbee. Lonnie Frisbee is this hippie who goes around preaching Christ, and he comes across Pastor Chuck Smith, I think his name is, who runs a very conservative, very old school church. They're very, very closed-minded to these hippies that are out there. And through the interaction, he reveals, he's like, well, why are you this way? Why are you, what is this whole hippie thing? And, and he's like, well, these are kids who are looking for all the right things in the wrong places, and I'm trying to steer them to the right places. But unfortunately, the doors to your church and other churches are closed to people like this. And it kind of opened up the pastor's mind, got him thinking. And so he's like, let's have you come to our church. And you can see all the people in their suits looking like, why is this guy in here? He looks like Jesus, and he's barefoot. They're like, but his bare feet are on our new carpet. And the pastor is like, whoa, we can't have that. So then the next week they kind of put it in the people's faces that because they were all upset that his dirty bare feet on the carpet, he was washing all of their feet as they were coming in, all the hippies. So it was interesting. It's like I said, it's based on a real thing. This became a revival that spread around the country back in the late 60s. And it's a very good movie. I give the first half of the movie an A+. Very engaging. Like you're really riveted through the first half of the movie. The second half, it slows down. The character on the right there that you see, his name is Greg Laurie. That's a real life pastor. He's a very successful pastor today. I actually watch his sermons, and in our small group, we used to get the Bible studies from him. He does a very thorough, very good series all the time. I didn't even realize this was going to end up being about him till about halfway through the movie. I'm like, wait, Greg Laurie, I know who that is. So this is kind of his origin story on how he became a pastor, and it's a very honest, raw look at his early childhood and upbringing, how he was doing drugs and how his mom was and how his dad was, and so the second half kind of slows down a little because it's focusing a little bit more on his life, but it's still, I give the second half a B, first half an A plus. So, well worth watching. So if you like Christian movies, you'll love this. I think if you just want to see it as a movie, this is true history. This really happened back in the late 60s. We just had a revival movement just happened recently. It was like a 12-day long service. It sprouted out of nowhere. Where was it? North Carolina or something like that. So it's just intriguing. So check it out if you're interested. It's on limited run though. So if you find a theater with it, it's probably only playing like one time a day, and but they've done well. They broke the 40 million mark, I believe. Which for how limited this is and how much of a niche
I heard
market
about it
is really
a
good.
couple months ago. I think it started almost 2 months ago, and limited release like in LA, New York, and then has gone from there. And it's definitely very limited release, but it's an independent film, so it's definitely
There's some really funny parts in it, and some serious parts. So it's kind of got the full gambit.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'd seen something on it. It sounds pretty good. It's something I may have to check out sometime. So, and then I went and saw Shazam.
Shazam! We need Gomer Pyle saying it.
Yeah.
Shazam!
Yeah. Here, let me pull up the tab here. Of course, here's the family, the Marvels, which they don't call them the Marvels. This is one thing about this film. For those that know the origin of Shazam, it was originally Captain Marvel, and then and it was in the Marvels and stuff like that. Well, the copyright lapsed due to issues when who was it? It was like Fountain or something like that. Whoever, Fawcett, I think it was Fawcett, owned them originally, and then things got screwed up. You can go read it online. It's all over Wikipedia and what happened. And at that point, Marvel had created their Captain Marvel character, which is different, which we know as the female in the movies here, but originally was a male, and they made it female in the comics years later. So throughout the movie here, they're trying to create their superhero names. It's kind of a running joke, and you can tell what it is. It's like, it's Captain Marvel. They can never say Captain Marvel, and so like you've got, instead of Captain Marvel Junior, which is the guy in blue on the left there, that is he's supposed to be, he calls himself like Captain Awesome something or other, which is kind of a nod to Chuck's or to the show Chuck that Zach Levi was in, but
right.
And then he jokingly calls Shazam the junior version of that. So so it was kind of funny on that stuff there. At heart, this movie is a family movie. And they even reference Fast and the Furious a little bit because of their overuse of family. There's definitely some comedy in this. It's designed to be more lighthearted. It's an action adventure comedy thing. You get to learn a little bit more what they've been doing the last couple of years. All the superheroes you see are not except for one, are not the kids. Except for Mary. Mary now in the second film, they did not cast a separate person to play her as a superhero because she is now 21 in the movie. And at that point, they feel, okay, she's kind of, instead of being a kid to being an adult, she's become the adult. So she's taken on the full form of Mary Marvel, which they never call Mary Marvel, just Mary in this. So it's not this, they didn't bring back the original superhero character actor from the first movie. But that makes sense as she's gotten older, because they talk about it in this, because you got to remember all these kids in this iteration are foster kids in this, living in the same house. Billy Batson, of course, has never really had a good home. He's still kind of rebelling against some of that, fighting this stuff, as well as being a superhero. And they got family. He does have rules. Rules is they do everything as a family when they're superheroes. But he's also worried about the fact that he's turning 18 and he's going to age out of the system and what's going to happen to him there. Because he doesn't feel like he never calls them mom and dad, the foster families, where the other kids call him mom and dad.
Right.
And that's kind of part of the story. So I am giving a little bit of spoilers on this, but the main premise of this is you've got the two of the gods that they want to get their powers back. They've been basically banished, and the staff that he broke in the first film is their way of getting their powers back.
Aren't they the daughters of Zeus or something like that, or
Yeah.
daughters of somebody? I think
Yeah,
Zeus.
yeah, it's they are was it Hespera and Calypso. Lucy Liu and Helen Mirren play them.
Mhm.
And then you have a third one. Let me find her here. She was added, and I saw a thing with her in the article. Oh, Anthea, it's played by Rachel Zegler, and she was in the West Side Story remake they did, but she shot this before that came out. And it was funny because there's an article or an interview, and it makes it sound like she didn't want to do this film. It's like, well, I just needed a job. But when you read the article, her and you read her full quotes, again, I think it's just some of the press trashing a movie without truly
Yeah.
seeing it. She says, "Yeah, I needed a job, and I'm so glad I did this one because it was so much fun. I'm glad I'm a
Right.
part of it." But they only say, "Oh, I needed a job," make it sound like it's a negative because the movie's not doing well financially, and I completely will blame that on Black Adam, 100%. And the reason is nobody's going to go see this movie knowing that they're ending the DC universe and Black Adam because Dwayne Johnson and exactly if I called him out on Twitter. In a certain way, he said he refused to do anything tying into Shazam. He wanted Black Adam to be the hero, and realistically, this should have set up the Black Adam movie.
It should have. This should have been.
Yeah.
Black Adam should have been introduced in this movie. He could have been the antagonist. He could have been introduced as the villain. And
they could have. So this would have been perfect. So what you got is with the gods. You see, you got to remember he's a god, technically a god too. They could have had with Hespera and that stuff. Said, okay, we're gonna get the staff, and then they resurrect Black Adam at that point.
Right, that would have been an amazing battle and everything.
Yeah. But he didn't want to do anything with it. He only wanted Superman in his. And this one now, there was a spoiler, and I hate that they did. Warner Brothers obviously can tell doesn't care. They spoiled the fact that Wonder Woman's in it. It's towards the end. She's in it for like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was a great scene. It was funny. It had a little bit there, and it ties into. And I'll leave that one as a non-spoiler why she was there, because she's a god too, and stuff like that. But it's. I hate it if they spoil it because if they had never done that in the trailer and then she shows up on screen, I think it would have got a lot more buzz, which is what they didn't want. Warner Brothers wants this to fail.
I think they want because they've already decided to kill this. So if this suddenly boomed, they would have a real controversy on their hand of half the fans wanting the old DC to continue, the other fans wanting James Gunn to continue. So they need this to fail, unfortunately. And The Rock, I think Dwayne Johnson, he understands business. I think he saw the writing on the wall with DC, and he saw it as a chance to reinvent the DC universe in his image, and he failed.
Yeah.
And the fact that he didn't want anything to do with the Shazam just shows he claims he's such a Black Adam fan and all that. If you were a hardcore Black Adam fan, you'd want to be part of Shazam.
Yes.
Those two are can't have the two separate.
This should have been the second movie here. This should have came out prior to Black Adam, but Black Adam tied in, like we said. Mm-hmm. And then they go do the Black Adam movie should have been a different version of that movie.
Well, also with the end sequence introducing Justice Society.
Well, I'm getting to that. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. That would have tied into Black Adam.
That's what I'm trying to get into here. Is he goes back. Basically, the defeat could have been not a full defeat by Shazam, and he could have basically banished him back to his home country. He goes back there to regroup or beats him, and then he ends up back there where he's hiding in his palace or whatever, and then. You got the Justice Society, the whole thing with Shazam. At the end, here comes the Justice. It's two from the Peacemaker. So that was James Gunn's show. And they had done Justice Society a little bit there, but they had him in the movie. Then you do the Justice Society bit going after Black Adam and tie in Shazam with that.
Plus, it would make sense Justice Society fighting Black Adam because they would have experienced him as a bad guy here. Versus in Black Adam, it's the Justice Society, but they're condemning him to death because there's a 10,000-year-old manuscript that they read. like, like,
Yeah.
let him be, like, you don't know this guy
Well,
is a bad guy.
and that would have been the thing, and he could have gone back, and he would have been regrouping, not necessarily to attack the world, but his whatever he's going to end up doing. Because, and then we could have learned a little bit of the backstory. They could have introduced how the king was the bad guy instead of being the good guy, and that would have been tied in. You can even still done half the movie they did with, some of the spelunking stuff, and then they find him sitting there, and he's just sitting there going, "Okay, I was beaten." And he doesn't know what to do next because he can't go back to sleep. But then it ties in everything else. So, but
if you want,
and that's the whole thing, and that would have tied in a better story. And then the in battle having Just Society led by with Shazam would have definitely been a much better Black Adam movie, and could have then set up to him to be the anti-hero that Dwayne Johnson wanted. And they would have done another movie after that with just Black Adam that would have been a better film.
Well, and the ending of Black Adam, he's redeemed by the power of family. Well, if you wanted him to redeem, the example of Zachary Levi's family would have been a good inspiration to teach Black Adam, to remind him about the importance of family.
Yeah, and during this whole thing, because the Hespera and them they basically take all the kids' powers, and except for Shazam, and so he's the one that does the battle at the end. But at the end, he gave everybody their powers back. He goes, "Okay, family, who wants your powers back?" Because they, of course, saved the wizard. They got the powers, and of course, at that point, then the foster parents stand there. Which, if you read the original comics, the foster parents or the parents had gotten powers at some point too. Right. So it was a kids comic. It was definitely like that. And at that point, I'm like, oh man, I'd love to see Cooper Andrews as a Shazam type superhero. It'd been fun, but we didn't get to see that. We just saw them all kind of get their powers, and then they became family, and they show them back to their house. And the rules, of course, are you cannot Shazam in the house, as they call it. And of course, he asked what his superhero name was to the wizard, which was like, well, your name is Shazam, because that's all they can use. They can't use the Captain Marvel. But it's also figures out from the beginning of this film where he's wondering why they're constantly having electrical problems in the house, because the kids are always Shazamming in the house, and it shorts out the house. So it's a fun movie, great message of family, a great adventure. And it's a shame that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's Black Adam overshadows this as a negative. This is a good film. It stands alone, does not have to be a part of the DC universe or the DCEU. They only tied it in through the end credits and the fact that Wonder Woman appears and it's Gal Gadot.
Yeah, they definitely, I agree on the Dwayne Johnson part. The other issue is just the Warner Brothers Studios. Also, like we had said, they're just they announced a whole new universe. They announced this universe is over. That's going to kill. There's going to be a certain percentage of people who just aren't going to bother since it's not continuing.
Well, and that's the whole thing, and that's what I'm saying is ignore all that. It's a fun movie, especially if you got kids. If you got kids, take your kids to see it. You'll enjoy it. It's not about a grander scope film leading up to some big event movie. It's a good film on itself, and it has its own story, and it completes its own story within it.
Yeah. Even the first Shazam, it didn't really tie into the rest of the DC universe. It could have been, actually, it felt more like a Marvel movie, which there's a Marvel, so that would actually.
Well, and this is where it was filmed better. It was felt like both films feel like they fit in between phase 1, phase 2 of Marvel in terms of they're not attempting to have so much going in here where they have to tie in so much story and introduce all these other characters that tie into the bigger Avengers or Justice League movie that's coming down the pipe. It's its own thing.
For sure.
And of course, they talk about it. I mean, they say, you can tell DC, he talks about The Flash, he talks about Aquaman, he talks about Superman. They've been talked about through both films, but you don't have to constantly see them, and they don't have to tie in. So this is just like, when you're reading comics, and I want to read just a Shazam comic, I don't need it to be a big crossover with every other comic in the DC comic line. And that's how this film is. And it just goes by itself. And it's a shame that the Johnny Hairdo producers and everything else cannot see past their own thing, and realize that if they pushed the movies like this, if they created these DC movies more like this, where they told their own stories, and you could have a little tie-in through the end credits to lead to a bigger thing, or something that crosses you that wasn't took away from the main story, you'd have people actually going and enjoy these movies more. And don't give me this crap of, oh, Justice League made $1 billion. Yeah, well, guess what? It's still crap, and nobody's talking about it to this day other than Snyderverse stuff. And even then, they're not really talking about, like, I watched it again, or I watched it again, or I watched it all the time. If those movies are so great, people would talk about it a lot more, and they don't. So, and it's a shame.
So I want to know who what. I want to see an image of Johnny Hairdo.
No,
Would I be like Johnny Bravo?
Yeah, pretty much. But it's the stupid. It's these producers. Kevin Lee and I always call him Johnny Hairdos.
I love that phrase.
So it's
I
just
just
the
haven't heard
slick.
it in
It's
a
the
while.
slick looking, producer types. They get the hair back, wearing the $1,000 suits, driving their
nothing.
cars. Or like when I remember reading the Robert Rodriguez his diary when he did El Mariachi, and he's at the Sundance Film Festival, and that's where they're gonna premiere El Mariachi there, and he's got all these. He says all these executives from the studio, and they're mostly junior executives. They're not big name people, but they get paid good money to just be their jerky selves. But they're showing up and they're I'm so mad because I remember this like 1993, 94. I didn't have a CD player in my car and I gotta have my Nirvana. It's like you don't even you only like it because it got popular every minute there. Did you even know who they were before they were anything? No. Why? Because you're a Johnny Hairdo. You only know what's popular and you think it's gonna make you money today. In the long run is realistically it's a good film. It's like Scott and I talked beforehand, and Scott, I'd say go see it, man. I think you'd enjoy it.
Oh yeah, I do want to
for the family aspect of it, and I loved the first Shazam. It was great, and I like Zach Levi. I'd like to see him do some other stuff now. I liked him as he played Kurt Warner as a football player a couple years ago. That was really good. I know, of course, a lot of them stuff from Chuck. Still a great show, a lot of fun, and I'd love to see him do a Chuck movie and then maybe do something else. But if they do a Chuck movie, I have a feeling they would have to include some kids because it's been like 12 years, 13 years since that thing ended. So, so by now, him and Sarah Walker should have a few mini spies.
Which could have Captain Awesome, the reference in Shazam 2.
Yeah.
Captain Awesome would have to be part of the Chuck movie.
Yeah. So, but yeah, definitely like that. I'd love to see that. But it's like I said, I love the film. I went in a little worried, but I wanted to see it because I liked the first one so much. Seeing this one here, and I was just blown away. It was a good story. They set up the characters right. They set up the bad guys right. They dealt with the issues they had over the last few years as at the end of the first movie to the second. And it didn't matter what had happened in the other DC movies. It was just about them. And that's what made it work.
Right. Oh, very good.
Yep.
So we've got Star Wars. We've got Mandalorian. Last week was chapter 19 of The Mandalorian, or third episode of the current season.
Yeah, and it's a very heavy non-Mandalorian episode.
Yeah, a lot of people are doing some memes about that. Which I enjoyed the episode.
Yeah.
Filoni and Favreau don't do side stories just for the sake of doing side stories. So they are setting something up here.
Yes.
So, obviously we had like the first 8 minutes was The Mandalorian. And then we go off to Coruscant to see the doctor here, the cloning doctor.
We met in the first season.
Yep. And then this girl, she's on Gideon's ship. She's some officer. I can't remember her name. But here's some of the things. So let's see this one here. Me enjoying the first 8 minutes of Mandalorian, then checking the progress bar, realizing it's now 40 minutes of content. I enjoyed it.
I personally liked it. What I've been enjoying about this and Bad Batch, we'll talk about Bad Batch later, but when you do things like this within the Star Wars, it actually has a deeper things coming out. The preview before last week's episode showed Moff Gideon, who we've not seen since the first season. And so that tied into these two characters here. And the whole thing is a setup, and it's tied into the cloning, which has been explored more in Bad Batch prior to the original trilogy era is when it's taking place. And this takes place post that, but we know that they've been basically trying to justify some of the cloning stuff that was dealt with in the sequel movies. And they're going more deeper into that. And while this doctor here is a cloning doctor, he's got some other issues.
I think they also are revealing a little bit of the character of the New Republic. Yeah. While you think of them as the good guys now that they're the ruling class, some of the stuff might be questionable the way they're treating the ex-Imperials. Like some of the reconditioning and stuff. That stuff you would think the Empire would have been doing. So they kind of cover this even in Last of Us. How when you have a a tyrant regime and it's overthrown, a lot of times the people who take its place are just as tyrannical as the ones they overthrew. And so I'm wondering if they're showing us these little bits as something larger that's going to come down the
But
road.
if you kind of look at what's been going on, it's not been wholly explored. But during this time frame, um, like Luke is off training Jedi's. So he's not part of the New Republic as a leader, as a part of the government or anything. He's off doing his own thing, rebuilding a separate
Mm-hmm.
thing. Leia would have been part of this too, but we've already seen in the Mandalorian that she did some training with Luke, so she's off too. She's not necessarily running the Senate or anything else. They won the war, but they deferred to other people. And again, regardless of which side people are on, there's always those that are power grabbers, and that's what we're kind of seeing here.
It will be interesting if they continue with any of the Coruscant storylines. If we do get a Leia cameo,
Yeah.
or at least a reference to her, maybe not directly in body, but at least a reference of her, something like that. One thing people point out too is that the female officer there, who's set up Dr. Persian she really played him, and I think she was there on behalf of the Emperor or Gideon to get revenge on him or to make sure he doesn't leak any information that he knows. But someone had put together a montage of throughout the whole thing. They would be, I didn't notice it at the time, but she will put her hand on her stomach at these various times. And so they were speculating, is she pregnant? And they're trying to give these subtle cues because it was interesting. And at first I didn't think much of it, but when I saw the montage, it's like they're purposely putting this gesture in there for some reason. So
I'm wondering if the initial cloning is also tied into natural childbirth versus just
that's
test
what
tubing.
I'm wondering. Exactly.
And that would make sense. And the thing is, when she talked to him, you could see it felt like a lot of setup. They're constantly questioning about his motives. Like, well, do you really believe in the New Republic? And it's the other people that are set up as converts, like he is. And he's like, yeah. And he goes, and I wish I could. My stuff is to be able to heal people, and I could clone organs and things like that for so to heal people and they have like a bad heart or things like that. So, and in some ways they don't want that, but it's also, I think you agree. I think it's because he knew so much, and he also knew about Grogu. So there's something tied into that, and it's like, okay, we don't have a need. They don't have a need for him. So this is a way to set up her, and I think it's also setting up towards the First Order, even though she's New Republic.
And if she is pregnant, this could be setting up Rey's father, which is a clone of the Emperor.
Right.
Because Rey is about 19 years old in The Force Awakens. So I think I'd have to go back and do all the math, but I believe we're in the right time frame where I think we're in the time frame where roughly that, depending how old the Emperor's clone is when he becomes a father for Rey, I think it lines up where it's possible. Yeah. So we might be seeing the Emperor's clone being born here.
I think if that's the direction they're going, yeah. I mean, it's the, like I said, I didn't know, so I have to go back and watch this again to see that. But yeah, it was Elia Kane, played by Katie O'Brien. She was the Imperial Communications Officer, and she's working with him. But it's like I'm reading something here. They basically, it's like speculation. She's probably a double agent, and Moff Gideon is still out there. And they basically wiped out Pershing's mind. So he's nothing now.
He's gonna be Jello now.
Yeah, they fully lobotomized him. But we got to see a little bit of the core world, what's going on. And I think, again, Filoni and Favreau, they don't always reveal everything right away, what this leads to, but they're setting up something bigger here. And I think it is tying into one is the sequel movies. They're not going to wipe those out from existence, but they're going to work around them and include things to better explain certain things and then move forward past it eventually is my speculation on that. But I think a lot of this that we're seeing here, and it's also because based on the last couple episodes, stuff that was kind of hinted at too, especially what Bo-Katan has said. This is setting up for them to basically do the Thrawn trilogy, but do a version of that, and Thrawn will come back. And what we're going to see is the First Order, which is probably him setting that up, which becomes the uh, this offshoot of the Empire. So
The other thing that will need to be explained at some point is this episode we're on Coruscant. Coruscant is still the epicenter of the New Republic. It's its capital.
Yep.
You fast forward all the way to the sequels, when they fire Starkiller Base and they wipe out the New Republic's government in the Hallian system. That is a different system than Coruscant.
Yep.
And at some point, the New Republic, and I don't know the reason why, maybe it's been revealed through comics, who knows? I don't know. But at some point, they have to move from Coruscant to this other system as their capital. So it could even be leading towards showing us what events are going to happen that way too. Mm-hmm. So we don't know why they move, but they do for some reason.
Right, and that could be something that they come up with later on, and
right,
and it may tie into Coruscant has been like the hub of the entire universe forever, and now it's time to go somewhere else.
We also were revealed the mountain peak, the only spot of Coruscant that you can see the natural rock. It's the highest mountain on the planet, and it's just like about 2 feet tall above the walkway. So that's how high it is. It gives you an idea of how high up these cityscapes go.
Yeah, and they talk about what Coruscant is in this episode in terms of being like it's one of just a few planets that are basically all city.
Yeah, I forget the name they gave it, like a polymetro something. I forget what they called it, but they had a term for it,
right?
For a planet city. So, anyways, it was cool. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the episode. Of course, I enjoyed the Mandalorian parts, but knowing Favreau and Filoni, I am looking forward to where this
the
goes.
first 8 minutes it's basically a battle between the Empire and Bo-Katan, and
that was really good.
It's right after the last one, so she, they have to get to their ship. They have to get him to his ship, the Mandalorian to his ship, so he can fight off these TIE bombers or TIE fighters. And no, they had TIE interceptors, and then TIE bombers destroyed her castle.
So regarding that, so as we talked before, so Bo-Katan went into the waters to get the Mandalorian out, which caused her to bathe in the waters, which then redeemed her. Unintentionally, she has become redeemed, and she became a member of the clan because she hadn't removed her helmet since. And so this is her chance. She's really isolated. She's a Mandalorian, but her people are gone. And now all of a sudden she's being accepted into a group she never thought she'd be accepted into. So we'll see how that unfolds.
I think it's even not just being accepted, but one that she wouldn't want to normally be accepted with. She didn't agree with anything that they did.
But she's having to question all her beliefs because she's witnessed the mythosaur with her own eyes.
Yes.
And she thought that was a myth. And now that, and to be fair, it's in the name, mythosaur. But it's causing her to question things.
Right. So it's definitely good. So I definitely check out. And of course, the new episode dropped today. You get a lot more Mandalorian action this week. And we'll talk about that next week. So, and then Bad Batch. So
what was last week's episode?
That was one where they go to this outer rim planet and they have the giant the tsunami.
Tsunami.
Remember they have an earthquake causes tsunami, so they have to race everybody up the top of the city that is on this rock.
I might not have seen it then. Did I not see last week's episode?
I don't know.
Did I miss it?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, bonus for me. I have 2 episodes to watch today. I might not have seen it then. That does not sound familiar to me.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You can talk about it. Don't worry about spoilers for me. Well,
I mean, it's not much. It's basically setting up. It's that we saw where they're breaking away from Sid.
Yeah.
And Sid is already threatened. We haven't seen anything happen from that yet. But it's called Pabu. It's basically the Great Flood. And what it is they're back with the treasure hunter woman, and she takes them to her place where she's now living with people, and they've kind of taken over this place. They've built their own homes on this rock, and They've been there for quite a long time, but it's away from the Empire, away from the Republic, so they can kind of just be themselves. They're not, doing much other than and all this. And then find out all the treasure she's getting is basically recovering stuff that they lost in all their previous home world that was destroyed by the Empire. So I think it's setting up a new location. Of course, Hunter realizes something's going on. He goes, "Something's coming," and then they have a earthquake, and that's when a giant tsunami's coming. So the Omega and another kid are out in the water to go rescue them, but then they all have to get up to the high, and basically the clones have decided to stay there, and that ties into a little bit to this week's episode.
Yeah,
so it's not a deep
character,
episode, but it's all, I think, a setup for giving them a new place to call home.
I don't like it when, this is just a side commentary, like someone like Wanda Sykes has such a distinct voice. Mm-hmm. I hate when cartoons use someone like her as a voice character because I know who it is. I would rather not know who the voice is. You know what I mean? Like, even if she did a different voice, but she's just talking her normal voice. So it's like all I hear is Wanda Sykes. So right. it pulls me, and nothing against her. I'm not saying her herself. I'm just saying whenever they have somebody with a distinct voice, it takes pulls you out of the reality, I feel.
Yeah, it does take away from the character.
It's like Ultron in Marvel. When I know James Spader's voice so well that when Ultron talks, I'm like, oh, that's Spader. That's not Ultron. It just takes me out of the reality.
Well, it was even like that a little bit with Vision. So I know his voice too, and stuff like that. So you could tell the voices and that.
Well, see, for me, I was introduced to him as Jarvis. I didn't know him as an actor before.
Really. Oh, see, and I did.
So for me, it worked because Jarvis became Vision. Or like growing up, I didn't know Scatman Crothers. So when I heard the voice of Jazz in Transformers, I was fine with it because I didn't know him. But if I was an adult watching it, his voice is so distinctive.
Yeah,
it'd been like, oh, that's not Jazz, but because that's how I was. Well, he also played Hanna-Barbera. Which character? Mm-hmm. He was the voice of one of the famous characters.
Oh, Hong Kong Phooey.
That's it, Hong Kong Phooey. Yep. Used to love that one too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the whole thing. It is tough on that. But that aside, it's an interesting character, and they're trying now. We're seeing more of, they're dealing with the Omega issue, and that's coming up more in the last few episodes.
I really am looking forward to the Crosshair. At some point, Crosshair has to encounter them again. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I'm really looking forward to, especially after that standalone episode with Crosshairs. That I wasn't really crazy about the character much, but that episode really got me like, okay, I want to see where this goes now.
Yeah, and this one, this week's does have more. It's more Crosshair.
Oh, perfect. Yeah,
it's a very little of. There's also Crosshair, and then who's the guy with get the arm that you can plug in? Echo, yeah. So Echo's back too.
Perfect.
So they're tying all this up. We only got I think 2 more episodes. I think next week might be a double episode.
Okay. Do you know how many episodes are in Mandalorian this season?
Probably 8 or 10.
That's what 8. I was thinking 8. I think season 1 was 7 and season 2 was 9.
Yeah. So next week is episode 15. I'm trying to say, I thought there was. Yeah, it should be 16 episodes. So next week is 15. I kept thinking the last one's gonna be a double episode again. So
all right,
let's see if we can find that. But they're definitely heading towards a wrap up of this season to set up the next season.
Very good.
So, and yes, next week's double episode. Next week is so there'll be 2 episodes next week. You need to watch 2 episodes this week since you're behind. And then we got 2 next week.
Very good.
And then I said, and then Mandalorian, of course. Season 3 episodes. Let's see what we got here. It doesn't say. So I assume it's going to be 8. Here we go. Yeah, 8. Yeah, 8. So 8 episodes.
All right. So this was episode 4 of this season, I believe, today.
And I really think a lot of the Mandalorian this season is stuff that they're setting up for some Ahsoka. And as much as I see the complaints online about people complaining about this stuff, it cracks me up. I'm going, they're making a bigger world here than just here's the Mandalorian, here's this, here's that. So even the probably want to talk to my car warranty. Uh they're setting up a lot for the crossover like they did with Book of Boba Fett, to this, to Ahsoka has some crossover, I'm sure. And we'll see where it goes from there. I'm hoping that after Ahsoka, maybe they're going to announce something new after Andor that would be okay. This is the new direction, and they can still tie all this stuff in without having to constantly have just Ahsoka or just the Mandalorian. They've already talked about rebranding the Mandalorian, or technically ending it and calling it doing something new. And part of that's tying with Pedro Pascal. So,
right.
So we'll see.
Very good. Well, let's just check into our Kickstarter really quick. Give one last update. Let's see. I'll just share that, and then we can wrap up.
All right.
We've got an office meeting here I'm about to go into.
Okay.
StreamYard ad. Okay, so we're still at 36 backers, $1,533 raised. 14 more backers, we can do it. 14 more backers, we unlock one of the goals, and then we're 217 away from unlocking another one. So there's 2 realistic stretch goals we can unlock and get everyone better prizes.
It'd be awesome. And then the book's great itself. You guys will enjoy it. So,
all right.
Hey, we'll let you know how it ended next week. We'll talk about Mandalorian and Bad Batch next week, plus whatever else we come up with. And you guys have a great week. Bye.
Bye.